Well, now I have the pleasure of introducing you to Kirsten back, and I'm so excited about Kirsten. And by the way, Kirsten is coming to us from New Zealand, and it's 3 a.m. So hats off to her. And I'm sure she's not going to be doing any wild antics because she has sleeping kids in the house. But she's got her loyal dog next to her. But Kirsten is a coach and she's a copywriter. And so one of the things that Kirsten and I had a chance to talk about just before you all joined was that she helps people with branding. And I am a word lover wannabe. If I could be a copywriter in another life, I would. I just think the world of the ability to use words to describe things in such a way. And branding, we know how important branding is to your job search and how to, write your profile and use words in a very effective way on your resume. And so I'm really excited about Kirsten, and she's got lots of great talents, and she's been doing this a long time. And she has been, willing to share her early morning hour with us, and we're so incredibly grateful. So, Kirsten, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for showing up this morning. And I really appreciate it. I also appreciate it that you're having me here, that I can share my message. So I call my business the Word Distiller, and that is quite dear to me. And that's also something that I'm really, really focused on, and that's clarity. And when we show up online, nothing, or show up at our job, nothing is more important than having clarity and communicating with clarity. So that is something that really a focus for me. And yeah, so today I wanted to talk about branding. And with branding, I mean not just fonts and colors and what you what your website could look like, for example. But I'm talking about branding from a perspective what's lying underneath is what is the bit more like the psychology of branding, and what is your message, and how can you come up with your message, and how, because you, when you show up, you want to be known for, especially when you're looking for a job. What is it that you want people in the industry to know you already? And you want to walk in with them having a certain perception of you. So that's why this session is called the How to Be Your Own Brand, and showing up with authenticity and confidence. So yeah, let's get into that without further ado. So the first thing is to clarify some terms which about what actually is a personal brand. And a brand is something intangible. It's something that just exists in our minds. It's an intangible image, a representation of your personal and your professional narrative. And that can include your skills, your experience, expertise, your qualifications, your values, the value that you bring to a business, especially when you're looking for a job or when you're filling a role. You're more than that role. You bring a lot of value, and then your interests, your story, what's behind you, what do you hold dear, what have you gone through, how has that shaped you, and how has that turned you into the person you are today. And then what do you offer? So I work with business owners, so with coaches and consultants quite a lot, and small medium enterprises, and they all have an offer, and they offer a transformational journey. But I've been in corporate for a long time before I became a copywriter, and before I call myself now a brand messaging strategist. And I know that as a person, as a professional, we have an offer too. And we help to transform the company. We help them in their journey of transformation. So that's what I think is important to keep in mind. And how we show up in that company is also tied to our purpose. And I, for example, I like to remind myself of my purpose every day. And so that the work that I do is aligned with that. And my purpose is listen, enlighten, and empower. So it's about listening to the people I'm working with who are around me, then give them the knowledge and information they need. That's the enlighten part, and then empower, so that they can empower themselves to act and take action. So that's for me very important, that I every day I show up like that, that I share some knowledge. And yeah, and then building that image of you with consistency, so that you not one day you show up like this, the next day you show up like a completely different person. I think it is very important that you show up consistently as the same person, to build your brand, to be known for something, to be known as a certain person. And that shows, for example, in your actions, your behaviors, your tone of voice, your clothes, your makeup, your style, your accessories, the colors you wear. That's how it shows up as well. And also how you show up, especially if you are on a job search, or if you are establishing your brand online, on LinkedIn, for example, that shows up in your profile and in your content. And there are 3% of people on LinkedIn, of all the millions of members, who create content. So if you do create content, you're one of 3% of people. And just to imagine that, and many, for example, as when I was in corporate, I saw LinkedIn as a, we call it a CV or a resume website, where you go and you put your profile there, and then you more or less leave it. And maybe when you were job searching, you switched on that thing that says open for work or open to work. But that was not, I was never creating content when I was in corporate. That came when I started my own business. But what I see now on LinkedIn has changed over the years, is that more and more people are creating content because they notice the power of content, that they as part of an organization can not only support the organization with their content, so they can play an important marketing role by sharing their content, but also when they are looking for a position, then there's something there. There is for recruiters, or for other companies, there's something that tangible that they can see, where they can learn to understand you. Because if you hire someone, it's always a big gamble. It is, you get the resume and you see what they've done, all the skills, all the wins and successes, but you don't know who they are as a person. You don't know what they believe in. You don't know any of the little stories they have to tell. And it can be workplace stories, for example. So I would suggest that anyone who is in a leadership position should share content on LinkedIn, and should make sure that the profile that is on LinkedIn is up to date, is professional, and gives people an impression of who you really are. So just a question to the group, maybe you can type that into the comments. So have you ever thought of building a personal brand? And if so, why is that important for you? Maybe if you could drop a few sentences or a sentence in there, why would you want to build a personal brand, or why would you think that is important? So, little break here. Okay. Yes. Bill says he has a personal brand. He wants to differentiate his brand from, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly. Others know what you have to offer and how you can assist them. Be unique and show you are different. And that's the thing. We are very, very unique beings, and we all have skills, and we all have strengths, and we all have little quirks. And these are the things that resonate with other people, because even when you apply for a job or want to fill a role, you're just not filling a role, you're building a human to human relationship. And that is something that I find quite important. So one thing that I find it is a little fun activity to do. It's called superhero game. So I I like to use that to give your brand a personality. To like you as a person, you say, okay, who am I as a person? And it's called superhero game. And so if you imagine that you are a superhero, or it could be a book character, it could be an entrepreneur, or someone, a role model, whatever. It's a superhero is, imagine to be one. Who would you pick, and what would be your superpower? And that is, for example, if you take Spider-Man, he's Peter Parker. He's a whatever, a teenage boy, but when he puts his suit on and gets out, he changes into this incredible person who's very agile and throws those spider webs and fights villains. So that is how I find it quite funny to think about your brand. If you were a superhero, who would you be? Maybe a few people can type in what would be their superhero and what would be their superpower they have. Wonder Woman. I love that. So Mary, what's your superpower?
I believe that my superpower is that I'm able to easily disseminate and distill large quantities of data, whether it's consumer insights, business intelligence,
Okay.
and turn that into messaging and campaigns that motivate consumers to purchase products.
Okay, cool. Um, Superman to fix all of my clients' problems and meeting all of their needs. Yeah, love that. And sometimes, it's easier if you slip into that role and say, hey, especially if you're going into a difficult meeting, if you um, have to present to a board, for example, you can really center yourself and say, hey, I'm Wonder Woman. I've got this. And when you know what your qualities are, you can rely on your strength. So that is something that I like to do, because it's kind of, it gives you an image of your brand. And yeah, it can be an animal either. So now then, I believe there are four drivers for a personal brand, or for even for a business brand. And it starts with understanding yourself, and to understand who you are as a person, and from there, and what your superpowers is, and then to articulate that like an elevator pitch. And I call that the client magnet. So if you think, whoever you're talking to, they are your clients. It could be it's a team in a meeting. It can be if you are a sales representative, for example, you have clients in front of you. So you need to be very, very clear, and you need to resonate with them, and you need to understand what are their pain points and what problem am I trying to solve for them. And then if you have a client magnets, that's like an elevator pitch, and it's based on your understanding that you have from the people you are interacting with. And I just and that can also show up in your LinkedIn profile, for example. So I just share with you. I hope that I'm able to share something on the screen, to share my screen. Um, Here it is. So here is my my LinkedIn profile, and here my client magnet is this little thing underneath my name where I say I help coaches and consultants get clarity on their brand messaging, systems, and strategies to write great content that grows visibility, impact, and revenue. So that's a summary, very, very clear of what I do. And when you have a LinkedIn profile, and when people look at it, you want them to have absolute clarity of what you are about. And to compose a sentence like that, in my eyes, is very important when you show up online, when you show up on LinkedIn. And also when you are in meetings with clients or networking meetings, that you have something that you can rattle off if you want to, but be very clear on what you do. So the other thing is, as I said, I believe it's important to show up on LinkedIn with content as well. So when you share content, what is it that makes your content different? But also, if you share any messages in your work environment, when you send out emails to people, for example, is it just some of the old corporate same old, you're speaking that corporate speech, that you sound like everybody else, you use the language, and that is something that is very, very strong in a corporate environment. I noticed that when I left corporate, that I didn't have my own voice. I had a corporate voice. I spoke the language of the business, of the organization, and I had to kind of fight pretty hard to get my own voice. Oh, I see here a client magnet, or a little elevator pitch here. Is I oversee corporate learning products programs, either internally or for the workforce, externally for customers, currently in transit. Yeah, okay. So, right. So if you can distill that, or if you can articulate exactly what you're doing, you're in a much stronger position. You won't be, yeah, you can show up a lot stronger. So back to the content. So if you share any content, also in presentations, you can give your personal flair to them. And if you share content on LinkedIn, for example, then what do you want that content to be known for? So for example, I like personalized quality content, and I like content that is well researched, that is well structured, that's going deep and getting personal. And I like it to be authentic. So that also depends on what do I share. It's not like Facebook, where everyone shares what they've eaten for dinner or something. LinkedIn is different. That it's a professional site. So you share more possibly about your beliefs and about your strengths, about your uniqueness, how thorough you are. So that can come through in the content that you share, and the stories that you share can be some success stories. And Deborah has shared a slogan. Okay, I help digital marketers turn traffic jams into race tracks. That's very telling. Yeah, I like the imagery of that. It's nice. So that was the second driver. So how when do you show up? What makes you different there? Your words and your expressions. Another thing is to have goals, to have a really big goal. So when you join a company, you have a goal for yourself. Maybe you want to become the CEO of the company or of a company, or you also have a goal how you want to contribute for the company or the organization to grow. And it's quite important to have that, because then you can come up with a strategy that takes you there. So if I, for example, say for myself, I want to be the best copywriter and brand messaging strategist online, and I want to be the go-to expert for people who struggle with clarity, then that is my goal, and that is what I can say. Okay, how do I achieve this goal? What do I need to do to achieve that? Do I need to take any extra courses, or do I need to take any qualifications? So when I was in corporate, I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, but didn't have a scientific background, and I always heard, oh yeah, with the career it's difficult, and where do you want to go? And we promote people who are who have a scientific background, and I said, no, I don't need that. So I did an MBA at the same time. I had 2 toddlers at home at the time, a full-time job, and I did an MBA. So that was something. And while I was doing it, even I got promoted, and I got headhunted, and then joined a different organization. So that was something that was a goal for me that I set for myself. I don't want to be held back by that belief that I can't have a career in a pharmaceutical organization only because I didn't have a scientific background. So yeah, and then that you have a personal mission for yourself, to make it very, very clear what you want to achieve for yourself. So for me at the moment, in my role, it's to drive the creation of the best content online by creating clarity and sharing knowledge. So that's how I want to do it. That's what I want to achieve. I want to raise the quality of content that is shared online. So that is something that I find important. And yeah, so if I may ask, if you could type in the comments, what are some of the goals that you want to achieve for yourself? I see a vision. Bill has shared a vision, leading leaders to optimize their overall business performance and reach their fullest potential, and a brand promise as well. So if you haven't got that, I think it's really, really important to spend a little bit of time to reflect and come up with some statements. And I'm happy to share some templates if people want to contact or connect with me. I'm also on LinkedIn under Kirsten Back. You can connect with me, and you can ask me, and I can send something across. So now that I'm talking about brand, so how can I live and communicate my brand? So the one thing is how I show up every day, and that I'm living or showing up in congruence with my beliefs, and so that I show integrity, so that I can say to myself at the end of the day, what I did was aligned with who I am. So then I can show up authentically. And what I felt in the corporate environment sometimes was that I was putting on a mask, that I wasn't authentically me. And in a way, leaving corporate was for me refreshing, and it was for me it was liberating, because I thought I could show up authentically. But I think it's equally important to show up authentically in the organization that you are in, because then people, they know you and they trust you. And that is something that isn't only relevant for when you have your own business, but I think building relationships and building trust is so important. And when you know your brand and you know how to show up, and you show up with integrity and authenticity, and also with vulnerability, that's also a very, very big issue, that people know that you're human, then they can connect with you on a deeper level. And if you're a leader, you want people to trust you. You want people to be inspired by you. You want people to choose to work with you. And that is so important. And a big part of that is to understand and to know who you are, what your brand is, how you want to show up. And that's so that you can act the part, you can dress the part, you can tell the stories that matter. And each organization has stories. For example, if you're an organization with a founder, I think it was Reebok, where the founder, he developed these shoe soles because athletes, when they were running on the track, they were always slipping. They had these flat leather soles. And then he thought about a concept and said, oh yeah, we have those. If the soles could grip, they would need a bit of a profile. So he went home and thought about it and found an old waffle iron. And then he melted rubber in his waffle iron and put that underneath some shoes. So that and it ruined quite a few waffle irons for that. But that's how he developed the first running shoes with a profile. And that is the founder story that is told in the organization to every new employee at the during their induction period, so that they really can connect through story. And that is something that I find extremely important, storytelling. Because storytelling is something that as humans, we have a natural desire to listen to stories. And our survival depended on stories. So when we as cavemen and women, someone said, don't go there, they had lots of saber-toothed tigers hanging out, or these berries are poisonous, that was important. And the same goes for how you show up within your organizations. You can tell stories that makes people relate to you. And there actually is research that when you tell a story, your brain synchronizes with the brains of the people who are listening to your story.
Hi.
Hello?
Yeah.
You need Sulfadine.
Is that for my infection?
I'm so sorry, Kirsten. Please proceed.
Okay, yeah. So storytelling is something that is really extremely important for I would say bonding, for building relationships, for building trust. And what I mentioned before as well, vulnerability is to open up, to be human. I found that was was something that's also a cultural thing. So I was working in Europe and Munich at the time, and was leading an office with, we had, I think, 20 people and 12 different nationalities in that office. And it was a startup, and everybody was doing their own thing, and they weren't a team. They had big issues. They didn't even have the same language to speak, because everybody was speaking English, yes, but it was not the first language. So there was miscommunication, and it was so important to build a team and to really get everyone on the same page. And we did that through different activities that we did together. We did well, not everyone, but most of them joined a half marathon, or we went mountain walking together. We went to the pub after work together. And then we had a lady from the head office flying in. And she said, why are you going out after work? Why are you always having those drinks after work together? And she said, when we finish work, we go home, we go to our families. But the people from the office, they had a second home in the office because they were spending a significant part of time in the office. And for me, as the head of the office, it was really important. It was part of my brand to build that community. So that when one of the ladies went through a really nasty divorce, the other people were there for her and they picked up the slack. When she showed up and whatever, had just seen her lawyer and she was really in no state to do any focused work, then the rest of the people, they picked up the slack. Or when someone had to travel to Slovakia on an overnight train unexpectedly, there was one lady in the office, she said, what do you need? Give me your keys. I go to your home and I pack you a bag. So she went to his home and packed a bag. And so that is something how you can basically have a brand, your personal brand, that you build within within your organization. And I think the term for it is intrapreneur. And yeah, so for me, that is something that is important. And now getting back to LinkedIn, is how do you show up on LinkedIn? So there's I don't know, I believe everybody here is in a corporate role. Is that right? Yeah, okay. So maybe some of you are even thinking about starting their own business. I don't know, because I work with a few people who are in leadership roles, and we said, oh, I want to take my knowledge now and start my own thing. That was especially after COVID, and everybody wanted to pivot, and many people they lost their jobs. So that is something that when you show up, there's a difference on the profile between an employee profile and a business owner profile. So an employee profile is a little bit more like a resume. But even when you do that, you can make it really, really personal to stand out. You can give it your personal note. You can go beyond. In my tenure, I made the company $26 million. So yeah, that's impressive, but it doesn't really tell me anything about you and how I can imagine how you would fit into my team, how you would fit into my organization. What I want to know from you is, what kind of person are you? What do you believe in? How do you treat people? And that's stuff that I want to know. So when you share content online, you can post, you can support other people as well. You can go to other people's profiles. It can be the competition even. But if you want to be known, I don't know, as a CFO, then you network and you support those people in your network, so that if you want to change or move or want to attract people to your company because you want really good people in your organization, that also means that you need to be a magnet for really good people to your organization, and you want to bring them in. And you can do that by showing up on LinkedIn and posting and supporting others, and commenting on their posts, not just lurking. 97% of people on LinkedIn, they are lurking. They are sometimes going in, they're not even going in very often. But actually, it's good fun. I like it, and I've met a lot of people, especially through the COVID period. I've met an awful lot of people through LinkedIn and through building a network. And yeah, so you can be very, or I always recommend to be very specific about with whom you connect and whom you want to follow and with whom you want to build relationships. I think you have to be very, very selective there and see. I always check out people's content. I go through their profile. I go from what kind of image do they have there? Is it a shot that they've taken at last year's holidays on the beach? Or is it a professional headshot done by a photographer? That really makes a difference. And what is the banner? Do they post, I don't know, some sort of beach photo, or do they actually have a message on there, their personal message, or the organizational logo, something like that. So that's important. And also, if you go to the experience section, you don't just list my responsibilities were A, B, C, D. It's important to say, okay, I did this, and this is my differentiation. This is what I achieved for the organization. This is my skill. So that you showcase your skills. It's like storytelling in your profile in the experience section. So with every step that you have there, you show how you became the incredibly skilled and experienced person that you are today, so that it's not just a list of dates. And yeah, so we've got about 17 minutes left. I can open this up for questions now. And one last thing that I would like to show you is a little graphic that shows how I work. And that is something that is on my my principle that I came up with. It's my framework. So when I help people with showing up with their brands as well, the starting point is always the person. So also check out your strength. I like, for example, at one point I did the Clifton strengths test, and people, they do psychometric tests like MBTI or whatever, but really go into it and reflect on it and your strength, your point of difference. Then also, who are your clients? So who are the people you're interacting with? And if you have touch points with clients, to really, really understand them. What makes their day miserable? What makes their day a success? So that you can relate with that, so that you can build a connection with them, that you can build rapport. That's so important. Then you offer. What do you offer to the organization? What is it that you do? How do you change the organization? Then your personal brand, just been talking about that, to relate on a human-to-human level. And then, yeah, if you go on LinkedIn, it's good to have a strategy. Not just post randomly to see, but why am I showing up on LinkedIn? What's my goal here? And how can I achieve that goal? What kind of content do I need to post to really build my brand on LinkedIn? And now I stop this share. And if you want, you can ask me some questions and give me some comments. I hope that you found this useful.
And we can open this up. They don't have to be in the chat. So
yes,
if you want to just unmute yourself and ask a question, that would be super, or a comment. This has been great, Kirsten. I mean, branding is everything. And we hear this from clients all the time. they want to understand truly who you are, what you represent, and what you bring to the table, not only your skills, but who you are as a
Yeah.
person.
Yes.
And it's difficult sometimes for some of us to express that.
I have a
Kristen,
question.
Can you put your contact information in?
My contact information,
Yes.
yes, I
And
can
we
do
will
that.
supply that as always in
Okay.
our recap that
Okay,
Tina
all right,
will send
thank you.
out.
Thanks.
Super. Somebody had a question.
Frank has a question. Kristen, so you've described the what and the why, but not necessarily the how very much. How does one best brand themselves? What are some of the techniques or tactics other than, posting on LinkedIn?
Okay, right. So there's one thing that I really love working with, and it's called brand archetypes. I don't know whether anyone has heard of that, but it goes back to Carl Jung, the psychologist. I think he was a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. So he did work with Sigmund Freud on the subconscious. And he came up with 12 archetypes, brand archetypes, that are like a profile description of a brand. And there's a brilliant book by two ladies. I remember one name, she's called Margaret Mark. I can, Margaret Mark. And the book is called The Hero and the Outlaw. And that's about brand archetypes. So that is something to get you started as well, to see, okay, when I want to brand myself. So I give you an example what these brand archetypes are. So if we're talking about businesses, for example, we have Harley Davidson. When we talk about Harley Davidson, we can imagine, we have an image of the person who would buy a Harley Davidson. So these are a bit scraggy man over 40, maybe, I don't know, with a leather jacket and a beard or something. And that's an outlaw brand. That is someone who likes to let the inner child out, to rebel, to break rules, to go against the grain. And then on the other side, for example, I think Alfa Romeo is the lover archetype. So when there was an advert a while ago where this red Alfa Romeo slid over an icy lake or something. It was almost like ballet dancing. And so the lover wants to be loved, wants to be admired, and craves relationship and craves admiration. And or Victoria's Secret, the underwear company, is also a lover brand. So there's so you can see the difference there in branding. For example, Wikipedia is the Sage brand. The Sage brand is all about knowledge, about sharing knowledge. And there are brands like I think Mercedes-Benz is ruler. It's a royalty, so it's a lot about exclusivity. And so there are 12 of these archetypes, and they have certain characteristics, and they have certain things that people who are this brand believe in, and what the people they connected with believe in. So so you can give that a go. But also what I find quite helpful is to really understand your strengths. To understand, because I never knew. I always thought I didn't have any particular talents, because at school at the time it was all those STEM things. It was maths and physics and chemistry. And those were the things that were celebrated. But when I did a strengths, I found out that I'm a very strategic person, and that strategy is something that I do naturally. And that when people come to me, I listen to them. They may come to me with a mess, and then I connect all the dots and come up and say, okay, here's what you can do. and give them a strategy. So to really understand what your strengths are is also good, because you can then build your profile also on your personal strengths, and they're very, very unique to you. And that's the other thing, because if you look, I think that there's one in many, many, many millions that you find a person who has the same strengths as you and who uses them in the same way. So that's something that you can do as well to get started. And I think one other thing is to really develop a few statements, like, what is my purpose? Like what I mentioned before, where I said my purpose words, 3 words I can easily remember. I check in with them every morning, every evening, is listen, enlighten, empower. So at the end of the day, I said, did I listen to people? Did I share knowledge, like enlighten? And did I show empowering knowledge? Did I help people to learn something, to become better at something, to build their skills? And then I have 3 other words with how I want to show up every day. And these for me are courageous, confident, and authentic. Those are my 3 words. And I say, okay, when I step into any meeting, into a Zoom call or meet with people, this is how I want to show up. And this can be different for every person, but when you know that, when you have distilled that, you can you can do that every day. You can deliberately do that. I have an alarm on my phone 3 times a day that tells me courageous, confident, and authentic. And before I go into meetings, I set intention. And when you do that, you show up as the person that you want to be. Frank, did that help a little bit, or do I need to?
Yeah, I noted the book. I'll just have to read it, I guess.
Oh, if you don't have to read it, but it's really interesting. It talks about branding a lot. It's not so much about personal brand. It's more about business branding, but it has a few interesting case studies in there as well.
Thank you for all of that. I love the words, and sort of repeating those as a mantra, right? So that we do remind ourselves to show up that way. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat from one of my colleagues, reflecting back on LinkedIn and how we show up on LinkedIn. Do you have 3 top tips maybe on how to make your LinkedIn profile stand out, how to share your brand most effectively?
Yes. So the first thing is your banner. That's the strip on the top. And the banner is like a billboard. It's like free advertising for you. So I don't know, it depends. Sometimes an organization says, oh, you need our logo as a banner or something like that. But you can have a banner that tells your audience something about you. And I have my one of my lovely brand sentences on my banner. Can also put a link on there. And then the photo is important, and the about section. The about section is something where it gets boring, mostly, where people just write down something generic, where they rattle down what kind of successes they've had in any organization, how much money they've made in an organization, and all that. The about section is a sales pitch. It's your homepage. If you were a business, this is your homepage or your sales page, basically. This is where you sell yourself, and this is where you show. You start with a hook that that interests people in the first interesting first sentence, and then you talk about pain points that you address through your role. Then then you talk about the solution and the change that you try to achieve, and so that you create a gap. And then afterwards, so there's some tension. Afterwards, you say how you personally fill that gap, what you have to offer, basically, how you do it. And then you can have a call to action in there, because you should never send something without a call to action. So that could be send me a message, or it could connect with me on LinkedIn. So that is something that I would do. The about section is a section that usually is very, very boring when you read it for people who are working in an organization. Not so much for entrepreneurs. Oh, I see 9 messages. I have to scroll down here a little bit.
There is a question, another question in the chat from Mark. So he's asking, on your journey of self-discovery, what was most effective identifying your strengths? You mentioned the Clifton Strengths Assessment. What was your aha moment, knowing you were strategic, and how did you identify those areas? And we have just a couple minutes left.
Yeah, this Clifton Strength is quite an interesting one. It gives you 34 strengths if you do the full test that are ranked in an order of your default. What's your strongest one, and then it gives you 4 areas of strengths. One is strategic, another one is relationship building, another one is executing. And there's a 4th one, which escapes me at the moment. And that was my aha moment, was really to see, heck, I actually got some strengths that I never thought about. So, and that is something that was my big aha moment, where I can say, okay, this is why I do things a certain way. That's why I'm always bored in long meetings, because my brain is always thinking miles ahead and coming up with all sorts of solutions. And then people are droning on and on. It was torture for me to sit in meetings. So it helped me to understand myself a lot better. And then I can also then say, okay, if I'm a strategic person, for example, or if I'm a strong relationship builder, how can I use that skill to grow and help my organization grow, but also to grow myself? And what are my blind spots? So that was the biggest one for me, and I took it from there.
Very good. Kirsten, our time is up. We just want to say thank you so much for all you have brought to us this morning, and for coming to us in the middle of the night from New Zealand.
Thank you.
Appreciate that you are so bright and cheery and awake. My goodness. Anyway, we will provide your information to everyone so that they can reach out directly to you and engage with you more. Again, thank you to all of you for joining us today. You are a great community. We appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you. Have a great weekend. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks on Friday again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Great week.
Have a great day.